first, what I'm going to have you do is I'm just going to have you tell me your name again, even though I know what it is, because I'm going to watch the meter here and see how loud you talk and see if I need to adjust it.
Okay, my name is Kenneth Johnson.
All right.
And
And then, what was your rank when you retired?
I didn't retire, I wasn't career, but in the Air Force, staff sergeant.
Okay. And so I was reading over your timeline and noticed that you said you joined the Army, and then
Yes.
after that, then you had to go back to high school. So tell me a little bit about
Okay.
how that...
Yes, well, actually, what had happened was that my dad actually had pulled me out of high school when I turned 16 before I finished 10th grade to work on a farm. And I worked until 18, and then I was drafted into the Army. And then from there, they sent me to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and I trained, well, basic, and then trained as a telephone lineman. But then I was, from there, I was shipped out of Fort Sill to Panama. And in Panama, I was working with controlling and planning harbor mines in the Gulf of Panama at the Pacific entrance to the canal. And these were controlled mines that fanned out, covering the entrance into the canal, because I guess there was some reports that the Japanese had built many type submarines that could get in pretty close to the canal, and then actually large submarines, and they could fly a small airplane with bombs into the canal. They wanted to protect the canal, but I did that until 46. Then when I came back in 46 to Kentucky, December 46, I worked about another year. In 47, I decided I wanted to go back to school. I tried to get into college with a year and a half of high school. And when I talk with the dean, he says, you don't, even if you pass a GED test, you don't have enough education. And so I asked, well, if I go back to high school for 1 year and pass the test, will you accept me? And he did. So I entered Wesleyan in 1948. And after 2 years there, in August, I think the Korean War broke out, I think in late July, anyway, of 1950. But maybe within a couple of weeks after the war started, I enlisted in the Air Force. Do you want me to stop here?
You're
Okay.
good. You
Okay.
just keep
But
going.
I did. I
I
did.
know you have it all written, but it's kind of
Okay.
nice to have it in your voice too.
Yeah.
So.
And so I enlisted in the Air Force, and since I had already been in the service, I didn't have to take any more basic, and they sent me to Castle Air Force Base in California, 93rd Bomb Wing. And there, when they interviewed me, they decided they'd like for me to work right there in that office at Wing Headquarters. And then I was sent to Career Guidance School, Air Force Career Guidance School, and I trained as a guidance specialist. And then my work assignment at Castle was primarily operating the tech school section, where I interviewed, tested, and actually sent enlisted personnel off to the right schools for training. And then when they got out of their training, they came back and would try to get them placed into the positions where they were qualified for. I did that for about 2 years, and then the officer that I had worked for at Castle wrote me a letter and asked if I'd like to work for him in Omaha, and I said I would. And so he brought me into Omaha at Strategic Air Command Headquarters. And there I was in the Personnel Programming Division. And in doing that, I was actually moving enlisted personnel in and out of all the different bomber wings that were in Strategic Air Command, and which included the 2nd, 8th, and 15th Air Forces through the United States. And then we had bases like places like Greenland, Labrador, England, Morocco, and even even an island in the Indian Ocean, Diego Garcia. But anyway, we had bases all over the world, and the idea is to keep our bombers in the air within striking range of the Soviet Union, and these bombers were equipped with nuclear bombs. But the whole idea was to protect this country from a strike by the Soviet Union, a nuclear strike. But that's what I did for 2 years there.
Sounds like that could have been a little bit stressful.
Anyway,
Was that stressful for you?
it wasn't so stressful, but it was extremely busy. My in basket never did hit bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very busy. Yeah, but but then while I was at SAC headquarters, I'd already had 2 years of college, and I started taking night classes at Omaha University, which is now the University of Omaha, Nebraska. But University of Nebraska, I should say, in Omaha, got turned around. But so I did that, and then when my enlistment was up in August of 54, I went back to Omaha full time, Omaha University, but taking day classes, night classes, and correspondence courses, I finished, got my degree in 1 year. But I got my degree in secondary education with a emphasis on business and accounting. And then I went directly from that into high school teaching. And I continued teaching business and accounting classes in high school and community college for the next 30 years. And then when Lori, of course, was here, my daughter was here at the university, and so I'd always considered living in a college town, university town. We'd considered Ames, Iowa, Iowa City, Lincoln, Nebraska. We'd considered those, and so with her being here and this being a university town, we moved here in 1998, and then from that's where my volunteer work started. I hadn't really done much volunteer work until I moved here, but I joined the Kiwanis Club here, Manhattan Kiwanis Club, and right away I started to concentrating on there's two things that I have special interest in. One is students because of my background, high school students, and the other one is getting food to people who need food, because I grew up during the Depression and there were times when we went hungry, and I just, so I've worked with the high school Key Club now as representative of our Kiwanis Club for 15 years. Still doing that, still meet with them. And my daughter and I work together up there. And that high school Key Club this year has over 50 members. They're very active service club. The Key Club is a part of our Kiwanis organization, and we see that they follow the Kiwanis guidelines and Kiwanis rules, but they run it, and with their high school advisors, teacher advisors, they run it. But really a great group of kids, and so I did that 15 years, and I've been still doing it. And I started, and Nina even worked with me when I started. She went out with me the first time we delivered meals. But I started delivering meals out of the senior center 20 years ago. And at that time, we had both Colorado Plaza and Carson. Is it Carson or Carson? Carson, isn't it? Yeah.
Carlson.
Yeah. And but now we just do Colorado Plaza every Wednesday. And I've been doing this for 20 years and still doing it. And and then also another thing that they've been doing, all this part of Kiwanis. Mm-hmm. And then I've been collecting food for the breadbasket from all the different grocery stores and restaurants, places all over Manhattan. And I've been doing that for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I'm also a member of the Manhattan Men's Garden Club. And the garden club has a plot out at Collins Lane Community Gardens, and that plot, I mean, they have this one plot that's dedicated just to the breadbasket, the Flint Hills breadbasket. And every year we grow first in the spring we plant potatoes, and when that crop of potatoes is done, we pick that and dig that and give it to the breadbasket. Then we follow that with sweet potatoes, and then in early fall we dig those and they go to the breadbasket. So that's something we do. But almost all of the volunteer work that I do has to do with either working with kids or with food. Okay. Yeah.
So when you moved here, you decided to start volunteer work. Was that out of necessity for something to do, or what kind of made you decide to
No,
start?
actually, it was a very good friend of ours. His name was Wilton Thomas. Wilton was a member of the club, and he asked me. We belonged to the same church, and so Wilton asked me if I'd like to join the Kiwanis Club, and I visited, and I decided that. What impressed me, was never a club joiner, really, never was. But what impressed me was that here's a group of people who actually believe in doing something. They actually believe in working. They don't just come and go through rituals, they actually do it, you know. And that did impress me, and so that's why I was interested. And but we had, I might just mention, in that Kiwanis Club, when I joined 20 years ago, we had 17 members who were World War II veterans. And of those 17 members who are currently living that I know about, members of our club, there's 2 of us still living. And me and a gentleman named Horace Kelly. He was the chief of chaplains in the United States Army, retired as a major general in the Army. He's up at Meadowlark now. But as far as I know, we're the 2 that are still living. But through the years, I met so many really and knew so many really quality, people who had real character,
Yeah.
in the club. And I considered it a privilege, really a privilege, not any sacrifice. And same way when I deliver meals down at Colorado Plaza, and those people get their meals, they may not have seen anyone in their apartments. They may not have seen anyone for all day long, and they're glad to see you,
Yeah.
and they're thankful for it. Yeah. So.
Well, now we didn't ever discuss. How'd you 2 meet? I know I'm gonna be nosy. I'm gonna ask.
All right, I'll tell you how we met. I was stationed, as I said, out of SAC headquarters, and Nina had a girlfriend who worked there as a civilian at SAC headquarters, and so we were the Air Force. Our unit was having a picnic and a party at a beach in Omaha, and I think this girl fixed Nina up with a blind date, and I went. I didn't have any date. I just was there, and so I started talking to Nina. We just started talking, and we wound up walking off and leaving her date.
There you
Yeah,
go.
we did. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So that's how it happened.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like that.
I was living at the YWCA, wasn't I? And that's where this woman lived. that
Yeah.
introduced us.
But in December, we will have been married 66 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's just
Long time.
That is a long time, but that's
Yeah.
amazing.
But
Yeah.
we get along quite well still.
Well, that's always good.
No fighting.
Oh, well, we
No,
argue.
we squabble.
We squabble.
There you
We
go.
squabble.
Now, grandkids around, yes, or just your do you have just your daughter, or do you have grandkids around?
Actually, my daughter here and a grandson, her son, and then we have a son in Bettendorf, Iowa, and he is a retired civil engineer, but he had 3 boys, and then they also are having children now, so we have great grandchildren. And then our oldest daughter lives in Burlington, Iowa, and she has one daughter who lives out in Portland, Oregon, and she has two of them, 2 boys. Yeah.
So do they come back to see you very often, or?
No, not really.
Not really?
They
They
don't.
don't,
They
no,
don't.
they
Although
don't.
now, our our son and our daughter from Iowa, they do. In fact, the end of this month, they're coming here to actually celebrate Thanksgiving with us. And he graduated from Ames, Iowa State.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Okay. So they're playing K-State.
Okay.
And so he's coming down here to watch
Watch the
K-State
game.
and
Yes.
Ames.
Well, and you'll be dressed in purple, and he'll be in red and yellow.
Yeah.
Or?
Well, I told him out of being courteous to him that if just for this one game, and since we did live in Iowa for several years, we would root for his team.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go.
I was born in a little town of Beattytown, Iowa.
So you are from Iowa, for
Yes,
sure.
I sure am.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Lived in Missouri Valley until I was about 20.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I taught in Iowa for 7 years, and the rest of it was in Illinois.
I got you. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I was trying to think of what else. Oh, I know. Do you ever participate in like the Veterans Day parade or any Veterans Day events?
Oh, I have. I've almost every year I'm in the parade. I'm walking in the parade. I'll be 93 in April, but I still ride my bike. I did my last birthday.
I saw the bicycle on the front
Right
porch.
there.
Uh-huh. But no, I gotta do that. But on Veterans Day this year, my doctor has scheduled me for an annual physical at 11 o'clock on November 11th. So
What you gonna do, right?
I won't be able to go. Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that, Ken.
Yeah,
Really, at the
I
same
do.
time. Oh, for You could cancel
But-
it and make it another.
I don't want to do that. But
He's just gonna keep it.
yeah, but no. And by the way, one of the things I'm doing is we have these DVDs, oral, that down at the Manhattan Library, and they are part of the Oral History Project that was passed in 2000, and that is an interview I did in 2003 for that. But there are, of those DVDs, there are how many? 192 from Riley County who have these on file. And one of the things that my daughter Lori and I are trying to do, we're trying to be sure these get online so people can access them online. We're not sure. We have an appointment with Cheryl Collins at the Historical Society, Raleigh County, and we're going to talk about if these are not readily accessible somewhere online, we want to get them online,
Yeah.
and we're going to make an effort to do it,
Yeah.
And but there's in these interviews, for example, I'm doing a program on the 12th down at Kiwanis Club about recognizing these people. Like I say, we had 17 of our members were World War II veterans. They're all gone now, but me. And I want to recognize them again and have some memories of them. And one of them that I'm concentrating on is Dr. Philip Hostetter. Dr. Hostetter was practiced here in Manhattan, and he was a doctor soldier in combat in the South Pacific. And in his interview, he gets into it lasts almost an hour and a half, but I'll be playing parts of his interview and concentrate one on his early life as a Kansan and going to school, becoming a doctor, and the other part is the relationship of soldiers and nurses in combat. It's interesting information there. And then I'm going to the last part for some of the things that he had to do as a doctor in actual combat situations. One of which is in a firefight, some soldiers had punctures in their chest, and they were sucking air into their air from out into the lungs, and he had to, with a needle and thread, sew those holes up so that to stop that. And that's just one example of it,
Yeah.
But that's what I want to. That's what I want to do for that program. But that's That's one of the projects that I'm trying to get done. Okay.
You sound like a very busy man.
Well, I stay busy. I'll try to give Nina as much attention as I can too. But
Yeah.
He doesn't always do so. Yeah, he does. He's nice.
Yeah.
We get along fine.
Well, I
We
do
spend a lot of time
but
together.
I do the cooking and other chores now, so
Yeah,
it's all right.
I've slowed down. I'm not doing as well as I was about 3 months ago.
Yeah.
I was doing more, but
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I've got
Well.
several health problems.
so
Well, the only other thing I was going to ask is, do you have any pictures? I see pictures behind you on the wall. Do you have any pictures or any? Do you have any other kind of pictures or other things that I could get video of, like memorabilia or anything like that?
well.
I mean, while he was in the service.
Yeah, from like.
The only thing that I have is much of a picture, and I could run downstairs and get it, but at our wedding there's a picture of me in my Air Force uniform, but I don't know
We
which.
were married. We were talking about that. I told you, I thought maybe she
Yeah.
might want something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you don't mind getting that, that would be great.
I will.
And then we're gonna disconnect you from the microphone though before we do